Hey everyone, this is Henrik Palmgren from Red Ice Creations. Hope you're doing well. The Pirate Bay founder Gottfried Svartholm Varg. I've been following his case. It's a very interesting one. He is currently awaiting trial in Denmark, and he is now being held in isolation or solitary confinement. And this is, of course, what a dangerous, violent, and aggressive criminal would be. So the question is why? Remember that Svartholm was extradited from Cambodia in August 2012 in a case that involved Swedish secret police who worked in cooperation with the police in Cambodia. And at the backdrop of this, his mother, Kristina Svartholm, pointed out that a meeting was held in which the Swedish ambassador signed a new framework agreement involving a 400 million Swedish crown payment in the form of aid to the Cambodian government. Now, despite the Swedish Ministry of Foreign Affairs have said that this link is ridiculously far-fetched, it is clear that she thinks that it's related, and I wouldn't doubt it. This is a high-profile case, and they have really wanted to get their hands on Gottfried for a long time. In what the prosecution dubbed the biggest investigation into data intrusion ever performed in Sweden, the charges against Mr. Varg and 3 other Swedes alleged that they conspired to hack into mainframes from IBM. And there is the one case of the Nordea Bank where they allegedly transferred money out of accounts which they tried to disguise via a series of online money transfers. But the fact is he was acquitted of the Nordea hacking allegation in September 2013. But now once in Denmark he is being held like a felon and denied general privileges like a book to read and much less the opportunity to communicate with other inmates or use a computer. And of course, they say that that's for security reasons, but he can't even use a calculator for the advanced mathematics studies that he wants to do.
It's just terrible as his mother to see that he's being treated like in this way, like as if he were a terrorist or a hard criminal or violent criminal of some kind.
So he's been in Denmark for over 2 weeks now, and these restrictions have been put on him ever since he arrived. The suspicion here, though, is that he is innocent. But this have been such a high-profile case both for Sweden and for Denmark, and the authorities have more or less been publicly shamed, and therefore they are doing everything they can to punish Gottfried ahead of time. His mother, Kristina, has spoken to Gottfried, and she claims that he is innocent. He knows this, and allegedly the authorities knows this. And in the end, they won't have anything on him. But before this is revealed, they're going to do everything they can to scare and punish him to the extent that they can.
Throughout this entire ordeal, starting with a raid against the Pirate Bay on May 31st, 2006, a number of rights violations, some more egregious than others, have been committed. And it's very hard to escape the feeling that governments are seeking to make an example out of Gottfried Svartholm Varg. I would certainly agree that he is a victim, that somebody is out to make an example out of him.
Now, Svartholm's mother has also written a letter to Amnesty International as she didn't like what she saw when she visited her son in detention. But this letter is a very interesting insight into how much in the dark she was about what actually happened to her son. She didn't even know if he was alive when he was taken in Cambodia. Now, this is typical of the procedure in Scandinavia. A stonewall of government authority and an all-powerful state does as it pleases, and there's no one you can go to get a straight answer, someone you can turn to who have the responsibility. It's just done, and then there you stand with nowhere to turn with your discontent.
His lawyer, as far as I can get it, she hasn't really found any legal reasons for this, because the court there, when they decided about him being put into this arrest place, they never made a decision about the solitary thing. And the prosecutor, according to what the prosecutor said to media some week ago, she said that I never made such a decision. So it's difficult to find out who made this decision, and since you don't know who made the decision, you can't complain properly about it.
Now keep in mind that this news comes amongst other stories at this time about how Sweden currently is shutting down all its prisons because they claim there are no prisoners to put in them, blah, blah, blah. They have even these exposés of so-called luxurious prisons in Norway, etc. The perception constantly put out by the state is that the North is held like a place where even the criminals are doing well. Louise Hoy, the lawyer for Gottfried in Denmark, says she has no idea who is responsible for putting him in solitary confinement either.
He is what I would call in isolation, under solitary confinement. The thing is that the judge didn't say that he was to be in solitary confinement, but in reality he is, because of a decision made by the Danish prison service. Gottfried has been in Denmark for 16 days now, and the restrictions were put upon him from day one. And 2 weeks ago I asked for a formal decision from the prison service so that I could actually tell my client what's going on. And I received what was, 3-4 sentences just stating that, referring to this section in the Danish legislation, he is to be put under special restrictions. And it was a big surprise to me, because normally these restrictions are only used if people are very violent towards other inmates. And I know one case where it's been used against someone who was charged of terrorism. But for me, it was a big surprise that this was that they used these restrictions on Gottfried.
And a surprise to you that such a lack of clarity could really be happening in a modern democratic European country.
Yes, I don't understand what's going on, to be honest. And I've been both a prosecutor many years ago, and I've been employed with the Ministry of Justice. And to be honest, these days I'm a bit embarrassed that they treat him this way. I don't understand why. And I guess it's because I can't find any reason, but I think it's because the case is just so extremely embarrassing for the Danish state that apparently they have to do everything in their power just to punish him in advance.
Well, you and he will obviously be appearing in court at some stage. Do you think he will be held accountable for his alleged crimes? What do you think his fate could be?
No, at the moment, no, I don't expect so, because if you look at the case which was in the higher court in Sweden, he was not convicted of hacking Nordea, the big bank, Scandinavian bank. I think the material is somewhat the same in the Danish case. So I'm expecting him not to be convicted of anything in Denmark.
And how long do you expect him to stay in solitary confinement then?
Yeah, that's the thing. If it was, a decision or a warrant that was made by a judge, I was able to tell him, for 2 weeks, and then we can go and see the judge. But now, because it's a decision made by the prison service, I'm not able to tell him that if there is. I can't give him any deadline.
Svartholm, who has also been working close with WikiLeaks, got the following support statement of sorts by Julian Assange. He said, "It is time someone says it like it is. Gottfried Svartholm Varg is a political prisoner, and Sweden has fallen off the map of decent nations in its treatment of him." It's not only him, by the way, it's more than him, but he goes on to say, "Gottfried has always been ideologically driven to inform the world, as he was responsible for an important part of that's WikiLeaks, infrastructure. There are thousands of alleged cyber criminals, but instead of dealing with these cases, we see vast resources diverted yet again by the Swedish state into smashing Gottfried. These attempts include the first trial of Gottfried after US pressure, his subsequent rendering from Cambodia by the Swedish intelligence service Säpo, his months of incommunicado detention in Sweden, and now his irregular extradition to Denmark for a charge he was just acquitted of." He goes on to say, "What is going on is obvious to anyone who cares to look. Gottfried is being treated differently from everyone else because the Swedish state perceives him to have mocked its security complex and the United States. But within the insular conformist world of Stockholm, what has happened to Gottfried is so demeaning to Swedish prestige that, like Sweden's CIA rendition program, it is literally unspeakable." What's clear here is that they're trying to make an example out of Gottfried. That's what this is about. And the state apparatus in Sweden will refuse to be made out to look like fools. Now, what many don't know is that similar cases and other human rights abuses are much more commonplace in Sweden and in Scandinavia than you think. We've covered just a few of them on our website, on our program. But it's just that you don't hear about these cases. It's just when it's a person who is known enough that some people both dare and bother to speak out and begin to spread the message through alternative media channels. Mind you that this is a high-profile case and the press in Sweden is more or less controlled by the state through subsidies. So while internationally Scandinavia pursues human rights abuses abroad, they refuse to acknowledge to look at what goes on actually inside of its own borders. Now, as for the Pirate Bay, the notorious torrent site that Svartholm founded with Fredrik Ney and Peter Sunde in 2003, it keeps relocating. This time, the site actually operates like a pirate ship, more or less, seeking domain hosts in various Pacific islands, before now most recently settling in Peru. So keep these things in mind when you hear all the good things that you do in the press about Sweden and Scandinavia.